Ladies and gentlemen, friends, community members, and distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to the Maplewood Police Department. Before we start, I just want to recognize the Piper is one of our retired sergeants, Sergeant Scott Andrews, so I appreciate his service today, and also our Honor Guard, current Sergeant Rachel Murray. Thank you for joining us today as we remember and give tribute to one of our community's fallen heroes. But we're also here to celebrate the life and legacy of Sergeant Joe Bergeron. It seems to me in a way like only yesterday, but it's been 12 years since that fateful morning that Joe was taken from us, yet his family, our department, and the community continue to mourn his senseless and tragic death. I recognize that many in this room may not have ever had the opportunity to meet Joe, so I just want to talk a little bit about him. He was born and raised in White Bear Lake. He always talked about hunting, fishing, the outdoors. It's one of his passions. In 1984, Joe started as a police officer with the Maplewood Police Department, where he also served as an investigator, one of our paramedics, and one of our original Ramsey County SWAT representatives. He was ultimately promoted to sergeant. Joe was the epitome of public servant and believing in a cause that was much, much bigger than himself. 20 years ago, which seems like even a longer time, I walked into this police department for a police interview. I was greeted by Joe, who was part of the panel. He was the first person to greet me. He was friendly. Midway through the interview, I didn't think things were going so great. They maybe could have been going better, and I feel like Joe sensed that. And he stopped the interview kind of halfway and said to me, said to the panel, I have a question that's not on the list of questions. He said, car or truck? I said, what, sir? I don't understand. Do you have a car or a truck? I said, I have a truck and a car, but I primarily drive a truck. Well, is it one of those new trucks? No, Sergeant, it's actually a 1967 rusted out, old beat up Ford F-100. Joe got a gigantic smile on his face, leaned back and told the panel, I'm done with the questions, we're hiring this one. And then he just started laughing. So I'd like to think that truck maybe got me started here, but really it was Joe. And for those of you who know Joe, he had a knack for relating to people on those levels. He could relate to anybody. He could calm people down. He probably sensed that, I was maybe struggling and needed just an icebreaker, and he brought that for me. As a young officer, I looked up to Joe because I always knew who he was. I always knew what he stood for. There was no question what he believed in. Currently as chief, my office window looks out over the Bergeron Memorial, which we'll visit a little later this afternoon or this morning. And it was actually the same office that Joe and I shared as sergeants together for a brief period of time. And when I'm confronted with some of those challenging decisions a chief has to make from time to time, I can honestly tell you that I find myself wandering to the window, hands in my pockets, looking out the window, and I say, WWJD, what would Joe do? Joe was and is for me that moral compass and that true north for me personally, as well as for the Maplewood Police Department. A department that believes in community partnerships, integrity, family first, and importantly, officer wellness. All things that I know Joe will be proud of a department that really has that as their pillars. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of our honored guests. First and foremost, and most importantly, the Bergeron family. Gail Bergeron is here today along with Joe's daughters, Sam and Allie. I want to thank the Bergeron family for allowing us to continue this tradition to honor Joe. I can't imagine the sacrifice. Also with us today is Mayor Mary Lee Abrams and Councilmember Kathleen Juniman, who will be saying a few words real briefly. City Manager Melinda Coleman is also with us today, as well as you've noticed, lots and lots of Maplewood officers, and I see some other agencies as well, so that's great. Next, I would like to introduce Mayor Mary Lee Abrams. As mayors go, I can't imagine a better mayor. At a time when policing is under fire and many mayors turn their backs on police and law enforcement, this mayor does not. This mayor sticks up for the cops, she fights for the officers, and she supports the officers. So I'm proud to have her as one of our speakers. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming to this important event. I want to acknowledge Gail and Joe's daughters. I had the privilege of knowing Joe long before I became the mayor and even before I became a council member. I knew Joe to be a family man, and yes, he did talk about fishing even with me. I mean, I fish a little bit, but not like Joe did, and not certainly with his passion. But he was a tremendous officer and so dedicated to our community. And the fact that this is 12 years is just certainly not lost on me, and it's not lost on me the number of people that are here, because I think we all acknowledge how important public safety is to our communities, to our safety, and to really the nation that we are. And so I want to thank you all for coming out. Continue to support law enforcement. I know our council certainly does. Councilmember Juniman and Councilmember Knutson, we believe that public safety is absolutely instrumental. It's one of the primary focuses of keeping our community safe, because then we can raise our families, we can grow our businesses, knowing that we've got a really strong public safety department. And the fact that we're here today shows that being a member of public safety is not just a job, and we all know that. Being a member of public safety really is a calling in life, and I want to thank certainly Gail and Joe's daughters. You know, Joe's niece is on our police department, and I see that one of Joe's daughters is now in public safety as well. It is a calling, it is a dedication to help others. You folks are the ones that run toward the danger. You are the ones that run towards the fires when all of us can stay back and let you do your jobs. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for coming out. Public safety is critical to who we are, and the fact that we recognize and acknowledge Joe's sacrifice for all of us after 12 years really speaks volumes. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief, City Manager Coleman for coming out today as well. And thank you all. It's wonderful to see all of the blue uniforms out there. Stay safe and keep doing what you're doing, because a lot of people really support you. We need you, especially today, now more than ever. So thank you very much. Thank you, Gail, and to his daughters as well. Thank you, everyone.
Next, I would like to introduce a long-serving city council member, probably the longest. And the good thing about this council member is she's been here long enough to have known Joe very well. I think they would consider each other friends, and so I can't think of anything better than have a council member who, much like the mayor, supports the police department and supports our agency and our officers wellness and our family first mentality. I can't think of a better council member to say a few words. So, council member Kathleen Juniman.
I think that was a polite way of saying I'm an old lady. That's okay, I am. Yes, I do remember, and I remember when we hired Joe, so that really makes me old. And my first impression was my lasting impression. Joe was always who he was, and the chief kind of described him quite accurately, might I say. But I always thought he was a walking contradiction, because he cared so much about people, and I love the way the chief said he could calm anyone down. I still remember when he started going on what I call the nasty calls to the problem properties, and he could take these people and just mold them where he wanted them. And that, I think it was genuine. I don't think he was putting anything on, but you could just see people kind of go like this when Joe came to talk to him about anything. But on the flip side was where I could relate to Joe. He had a wonderful sarcastic sense of humor that he could use at just the appropriate times, and it was always appropriate with me. So we enjoyed each other's company from that standpoint. There's no way to sum up someone like Joe, but as the mayor said, all of you say volumes. And I was thinking about this yesterday. How do you talk about someone who was such a presence? And in my mind, everybody, whether you're good or bad in this life, you leave a mark. And once you're gone, what do people remember? And does memory outweigh grief? So in my mind, Joe left a huge mark. Everybody remembers something wonderful about Joe. And that's a good mark if you can leave it. Some of us won't get there, but he really did. And I think I've said this before, but to all the young officers who didn't get to know Joe, you do know him because he left a mark on this department. And the chief is right. Joe would have loved, I think, everything the department is doing and stands for now. So he lives on. And I want Gail to know how much we appreciate that you will still come and do this with us, because it can't be easy to bring this up every year in a public setting. But it allows us to remember him as a group and be glad we knew him. And so we appreciate that you would do this for us. Thank you, Gail. And so I just want you all to know, take it with you. Joe left a mark. How do you remember him? What's the mark that he left on you as well as this community? I'm sure the department misses him every day. And because I knew him for so long, I think of him often, just driving into City Hall. He lives on and on and on in the mark he left.
Next, I would like to introduce Ramsey County Chaplain Bob Leo to say a few words in a prayer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out today on this rainy day. And to honor Joe Bergeron, an old friend of mine. We went through a lot together. We were both of us were firefighters for the city of Maplewood. And I was also when I left, well, I was in water patrol, and he joined in water. When he left, I got his equipment in water patrol. And in fact, I was doing water patrol the day of that fateful day that we can't get ever out of our minds. And Joe had told me that they had a unit, volunteers in police service, VIPs, and he asked if I was interested in doing that, and I thought, it'd be fun. So we had a lot of fun doing that too. So I miss Joe a lot. But one thing he always told me that I still haven't caught on to is keep your talks short. I have a tendency to get carried away sometimes. But and Joe, I remember that when I got the call, I was working water patrol, and I heard the report, and I had a few very close friends on the police department with Maplewood. One is my best friend's son, Jason Marino, who's still on the department. And I just thought to myself, I had to pray that it wasn't him or Joe or any of the close people that were in my life at the time. And when I found out it was Joe, it was just a numbing, very numbing situation. I couldn't believe it. I did go to the tragedy site the next morning, and there was a St. Paul police chaplain that did the memorial service, and I was there in uniform, chaplain uniform, and she came over and asked me if I knew Joe, and I said, yeah, very well. She says, would you help me with the memorial? Well, it was tough to do, but I did it. Anyway, again, I thank you all for showing up. We've been to so many of these, 12 of these memorials, and that I've done. And I'd like to just invite you to join me in a prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask you to look down upon us and hear our prayers. We ask you to bestow on us your blessings, to keep us strong during these times, and especially in our faith, under your infinite power and protection. We ask you to bless our friends, our fellow officers, Joe, and to bless his wonderful family and all of his friends this day. And let your dazzling radiance shine upon him and keep him in your saving light. For the darkness is no more. In your blessed name, O Lord, we pray, now and forever. Amen. Thank you very much.
Now for the awards. In keeping with Joe's spirit of service, we have created the Sergeant Joe Bergeron Community Service Award. This award was created in collaboration with the Bergeron family to honor his legacy through the community service he provided throughout his career. The Bergeron family also assisted in the judging of the applicants that came into the city. This award further gives us the opportunity to recognize those in our community whose actions exemplify selfless community service. This award is given out annually and will be reserved for a member of Maplewood Public Safety and a member of our community. This award may be given to a person who has provided a significant contribution in the area of community policing and service to the community. The Sergeant Joe Bergeron Award will consist of a certificate of recognition, an award, a uniform bar for sworn personnel, or a lapel pin for non-sworn award members. The Sergeant Joe Bergeron Community Service Award plaque, which is in front of you here, is hung proudly in this City Hall chambers for everyone to see. Every year, both recipients' names will be added to this plaque. This year, we have 2 recipient winners. The first recipient of the Sergeant Joe Bergeron Award will be Kathy Welchland. If you could step forward. The second award recipient will be Maplewood Reserve Lieutenant Kenny Mauston. Unfortunately and sadly, Kenny passed away last January. But if you know Kenny like we know Kenny, he's here, he's laughing, and he's watching, and he's very proud of this award. Ken's sisters, Kim Anderson and Kara Mauston, will be accepting the award on his behalf if they could step up. Have you come up first? Yep. And Deputy Chief Dan Buzak will be reading the awards.
It is my honor to present Kathy Welchland with the 4th Annual Sergeant Joe Bergeron Community Service Award. Kathy has been a volunteer with the Maplewood Police Department since 2013. Kathy started with the Maplewood Volunteers in Police Service and has assisted the police department over these many years with a variety of tasks and jobs. Kathy has assisted with the police department's bait car program, assisted the investigations unit, helped prepare for many national night out events, and helped assist with the preparation for this memorial event in previous years. Most recently, Kathy has provided regular assistance to the records unit with a variety of administrative tasks. She regularly assists with reviewing and approving cases, assists with accident report request, evidence review, and any number of special projects as needed. In 2021, Kathy completed 369 volunteer hours with the Maplewood Police Department. Kathy also volunteers regularly at the Ramsey County Care Center and has regularly delivered Meals on Wheels in the past. She is truly an asset to the community. Kathy cares greatly for the members of the Maplewood Police Department and has been an extremely valuable resource to the records unit these last several years. She has always gone above and beyond what is asked of her, and her quality work and dedication is much appreciated. So thank you. It is my honor to present in memoriam Reserve Officer Kenny Mauston with the 4th Annual Sergeant Joe Bergeron Community Service Award. Kenny epitomized the commitment to service and community that this award recognizes. As the chief stated, Kenny passed away in January of this year. Kenny was a volunteer Maplewood Reserve officer for over 40 years and was always willing to help out whenever anything needed to be done. On average, over the last 5 years, Kenny did 300 hours of volunteer patrol work and 75 hours of details for the Maplewood Police Department every year. Kenny Mauston won the Reserve Officer of the Year award in 2016. As a reserve lieutenant, Kenny oversaw the vehicles and equipment for the reserves. He ensured that the reserves had working equipment and the necessary tools to do their job to the best of their abilities. He came up with ideas to make the reserve program more efficient, better, and functional. He consistently maintained a calm demeanor and ensured that the Maplewood Police Reserves conducted themselves in the most professional manner while always looking out for each officer's safety. Most importantly, Lieutenant Kenny Mauston Jr. was a role model for the new reserve officers who came into the program, many of whom later became law enforcement officers. He was reliable, dependable, smart, and gave 40 years of dedicated service to the Maplewood Police Department and the Maplewood community. Thank you.
I look forward to honoring Sergeant Bergeron's legacy in the years to come through this very important award. If everybody could please join me one last time in giving a round of applause for these deserving recipients. So this year marks the first year in 12 years where we didn't hold this ceremony out at the memorial out in front of the police department, mostly because we didn't want the fire department to have to deal with hypothermic people. So it's a little cold out. We weren't sure about the rain, but it bothered me that we were only in here. So I want to connect what we're doing here with the memorial because it's a sacred place for officers. They see it as they come and go to the police department. They stop, citizens stop and admire it. And so we really wanted to make that a connection to what we're doing right now. So I have some closing remarks. After those closing remarks, Sergeant Andrews will lead a procession for all of you. We'll walk out there. It looks like it's raining a little bit, but it'll be brief. It'll be led by Sergeant Andrews, followed by the Bergeron family, followed by sworn officers of any department, and then all of our other welcome guests. We'll do a brief wreath-laying ceremony, and then you are all welcome to come back here, talk about Joe, share stories about Joe, and we have coffee and donuts and cookies for you guys. And feel free to take a tour of the police department as well. In closing, I want to thank all of you for coming together today. It means a lot to the agency. I know it means a lot to the Bergeron family. And every year, it's important to honor Sergeant Joe Bergeron. As you go about your day today, I just ask you keep Joe and his family in your thoughts. Also, please keep our police officers and firefighters in your thoughts and prayers as well. If you've been paying attention, this job has not gotten any easier. It's been getting only tougher. But it takes a special person to put that badge on every single day, and I fully believe it's a calling. These men and women represent the very finest our community has to offer. I just want to end with John 15:13, which felt like a fitting verse to end this presentation. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. We miss you, Sarge.